Planning Commission is called to order. Roll call, please.
Scott Gold is absent today. Joni Jamieson.
I'm here.
Aaron Peterson.
Here.
Justin Rodriguez, currently absent. And Jack Williams.
Here.
Thank you.
Just make sure you have your microphone on up there.
So, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Aaron, would you lead us, please?
Sure, hand over your heart. With me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Who says it right? Did you say one nation under God? Good girl.
No comma.
No comment.
Joni taught me that.
Okay, public comment. Would anybody like to speak on items not for tonight? Seeing none here.
Would anybody on Zoom like to speak on items not on the agenda? Please raise your hand.
Is there anybody on Zoom?
We have, yes, three people from the public on Zoom.
No video.
No public comment.
No public comments. Any requests for continuance, withdrawals, or addition of ex-agenda items? Seeing none, move on. Conflicts or ex parte communications?
No, I need to just say that I did meet with Mr. St. George in Santa Barbara maybe a month ago. He came down to my restaurant. We chatted about his project and listened, and that was it.
Okay. Jody?
No comment.
Okay. How about approval of minutes from our last meeting on June 7th? Has everybody had a chance to look them over?
I'll move the approval.
Now, I wasn't present, so I don't vote. I can't remember.
I think that's right.
Okay, that's fine.
So,
So we have to hold. So we don't have a quorum for that matter, so we'll have to hold
so
on
table
that.
that for later. or
Hopefully
next
Justin shows
meeting.
up, or Mr. Rodriguez shows up.
Okay, there are no public hearing items, there's no project scheduled. We're going to discuss the old lumberyard property. Maybe it is a party.
Okay,
So could we have the staff report on this, please?
I'm just going to kick off with just a brief reminder of where we are with this project. If you would remember, there is an existing SB 330 application. The city currently is in process of working with the applicant. There was a couple of discussions at City Council about an alternative option for a project at that property. The last time we brought it to council was on May 24th of this year, where we received direction to work with Mr. Ed St. George on a potential hotel project at the property. So what we are presenting to you today is a conceptual review of his latest submittal, just in concept of what he's thinking of proposing to the city. And I'll let Lori Tamura, our planning consultant, provide with the report.
Great. Again, Lori Tamura, I'm contract planner, and moving forward with the presentation. We have been working with Ed St. George for about a year now on development of this site. The history of this goes back to the Mission View Apartments project several years ago, and the property at that point was designated DR20, and prior to that it was TRC zoning. And one of the applications that has been presented to us is on the slides.
We can have the screen.
So this particular project was presented to us back in August of 2020. This is the view from Mission Drive. If you could go to the next slide. This is a revision of this that came in March of 2021 based on comments that were provided by Planning Commission as well as the City Council throughout the last year. And this is the application that we're currently working with. It does have 59 units on it. And if we can go to the next slide. This is the elevation from Mission Drive. It is a large building, 4-story. It has a number of different unit types in it, and we're looking at it both on the traffic, cultural resources, visual resources, in the environmental review. As Zena mentioned, there has been additional discussions on potential hotel project, and so we did receive a package a couple weeks ago, and that's why we're bringing it forward to you for discussion. The next illustration is how the hotel/housing plan would be laid out on the property. There's a hotel fronting Mission Drive, and as you move north on the site, there is a building for valet parking. And then you have this quad area that has a combination of hotel units and then housing units. And the courtyard area is there for providing separation between the different buildings. So if you can go to the next slide. This is the elevation along Mission Drive. Instead of a 4-story element, you now have a 2-story element that's mirroring the Mission and the Vets Hall as far as architectural style. And this is definitely some of the comments that was relayed to the community as a preference. You know, basically it was either Danish style or a more Spanish style building, and this is the direction that we're going, or Mr. St. George is going with. The good thing is that it is a 2-story element rather than 4 stories. Next one. In order to accommodate everything on site, there will be some buildings in the back that are exceeding the city's height requirements, 4-story, 50 feet tall, but they do meet the intent of the DR20 provisions maintaining the housing. In this case, the housing on this site is 43 units based on density, and they're proposing 43 units on here along with the hotel. Next slide. So basically the issues that we would need to go through if we moved in the direction of this project is we would have to do a general plan change rezone from the DR20 to the TRC zone. The TRC zone does allow for residential uses within that zone district as long as it's secondary to the main commercial use. So we would be working with them to make sure that the calculations of square footage or other metrics would make sure that the residential component is less than the commercial component. Along with the rezoning general plan change would be a development plan, which would provide all of this information that you have seen in other projects: architecture, elevations, site plans, landscaping, all of those requirements. And through that process, the Planning Commission can approve modifications of the zoning ordinance. And the two that we see right now with this project is building heights, and the other one would be parking. Right now, they're short about 37 parking spaces based on the number of units that they have on site and the calculations. And again, this is a concept plan, so we'd be going through more details as we move forward. Other issues on the site, the old house that is referred to in some of the archaeological or the historic reports as the skit house. The preference is to have that remain on site, and that's a recommendation. We would have to work with the applicant on how that can happen. The concept plan that's been before you would not have the skit house on that property. Other issues are traffic and access off of Mission Drive. This particular driveway is really close to Pine Street, And so you line the site, and turning movements are really critical. And we'll need to work through that with the applicant for this project. And of course, there'd be environmental review for the new project once we have all of the information in. The change to the project is definitely something that I think the community has been driving towards. And so we're here tonight to listen to what you have to say, and thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions on the staff report?
I have a couple.
Okay.
The height in TRC is maximum, I had it here, as you were talking, I was trying to look for it. Is it 30?
35 feet.
5 with elements going
Up to 50,
up to 50.
yes.
And this has a height of,
50 in the buildings that are in the back,
In
in
the-
this, or in the center of the project.
center of the project. On
Right.
Mission Drive,
Mission Drive, I believe it was 30 feet, and then there's a step up to 35 feet.
okay, and there's some elements, an elevator shaft and maybe
Right.
I don't know, something, a chimney
There's some
or
decorative
bell tower, something,
elements there, in there.
which can go up to the 50,
Correct.
okay.
And just the other note is, the buildings that are fronting on Maple, they're three-story, it's a three-story element, and it's 40 feet high along there. So again, that would be a modification. Even though it's a four-story building, it's actually dropping down into the topography because the hill kind of moves up from Mission to Maple. And there's a cross-section in the presentation.
Yeah, I did see that, that was pretty clear. The house in the historical document that Joni had asked for and you sent to us, said it could be mitigated by also moving it to another site. I mean, destroying is the worst, and you make a plaque and you have pictures. I mean, that's one extreme. The other extreme is having it remain. But I thought I read that it could be mitigated to negative if you moved it to another site intact. Is that
Correct.
true?
Yes,
Okay.
there's a step down
Yeah.
of how you can handle a historic building. Obviously, the preference is to maintain it on site. You can move it. Recent cities have moved a historic building to a park or some
Yeah.
other location, and renovated it and have it used for the public. Or, as you said, you could identify it with a plaque and pictures.
Okay. And then the access issue on 246, I'm assuming Caltrans obviously has a lot of say in that. Are they going to, or we don't know, allow access either in or out? I just know we went through it with the development down in the corner of Alamo Pintada and 246, that they were not going to allow any access off of 246.
Well, this has a unique situation compared to that project because it already historically has access off of
Gotcha.
246. The question is, where is that driveway located along their frontage and what Caltrans will allow?
So there's one apron at the little house, and then there's a bigger apron
Right.
for the main, when we used to buy lumber and drive in.
Exactly.
And this project wants to keep the one at the house apron, the
Well,
one
that's
to the east.
currently what they're proposing.
That's what they're
Yes.
proposing, okay. And no other access, because there has been rumors and talks, there's gonna be, try to get access off of Pine Street. That's not in this proposal. When I looked at it, I didn't
No.
see that, okay.
There's one off of Maple coming into the property.
And
then-
one off of
Right.
246, and that was
Correct.
it. Traffic house, site parking.
Where the previous project for the residential had all of their access coming off of Maple.
Okay, gotcha. Last issue was the parking. So if an applicant is short X amount, and we require a certain percentage to be, if you will, on campus, do we allow in lieu fees to be paid or remote parking if you bought a piece of property for a hotel or residence? I know we do for a commercial piece of property. I know we do for retail. I know we do for restaurants, but I don't know, anyway, maybe we can chat about that whenever you get a chance too, because that seems pretty important.
Again, the development plan standards allow for modification of parking. There's also reciprocal parking. There's opportunities for, use that has more traffic during one time to another. There's consideration for that. In this case, there are two independently operated uses. The hotel has its needs, the residents have their needs. And so in this case, we would be looking at either an offsite agreement or go through the process for in lieu fees.
Okay, so it is allowed for a hotel or residence in lieu fees and offsite. I didn't know that. I didn't know yes. I didn't know no. I mean, I thought maybe it said absolutely not. So that's interesting. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Well, we have one hotel that doesn't have any parking across from the park.
They have some, but that got approved with conjunctive use because they weren't going to have a lot of employees, and that the restaurant, meaning Fitzpatrick's, and they would use a conjunctive, much like we did with the water wheel project way back when.
Right.
Not in the current state,
Right.
but in the previous one, a conjunctive use with some valet parking.
Mhm.
So we have found that for hotels and things in the past. You're correct.
Parking covers, the regular parking,
Which one?
the hotel.
If you want to use
Oh,
your
it's the
mics.
open
Yeah.
space there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Courtyard.
right.
Just need to be on the record when you're talking.
Oh, sorry.
Anyways, those are my questions. Thanks.
Joni, do you have any, on the staff report, we can get into deeper
Well,
discussion?
my concern is the old house. I would hate to see it be moved. I would like to see it somehow incorporated in the project. And that's my main concern. I think the parking is an issue, but I think it can be worked out. I would hope.
Justin?
The only comment I thought was Aaron was bringing up the Caltrans thing. I could definitely see why they would have an issue with traffic coming in and out from CVS and a major grocery store that's servicing the whole community, like basically a major shopping center. Or I don't see the impact on maybe on a Friday maybe with people coming in and checking out. But this is going to be pretty low impact compared to that shopping center. So I don't think.
Well, and I guess the question is, if the applicant goes to Caltrans and says, this is what we want to do, and Caltrans says, no, you can't do it, is the project then dead? Does it need to access? Does it need to have access on 246 to be approved from a city standpoint? Or is it just a, hey, we'd like to have that, oh, we didn't get it, it's not a big deal?
And what's the
I mean,
fi-
is Maple Street enough, I guess,
Yeah,
is my
what's
question.
the fire regulation on that?
Yeah, the fire department normally wants 2 access points, and they want the access points to be those that people use, because if they don't know that there's not an access point, they might go in a different direction or conflict with the fire department. So I think at this point, the question that you're asking about what's gonna happen with Caltrans and the access to 246 is one that we're just going to have to pursue with the applicant and make sure that they still have, I would say vested access, and whether the issue is moving it to a strategic location along that frontage, working with Caltrans on making that happen.
And obviously, this is more, I guess, a question. There are, I think, in town, thinking back where Lundy's station is, where the apartments are behind, and there's a breakaway chain. On Old Mill Road where I live, those new houses have a breakaway chain for emergency access only. I think it's a plastic chain, and you can, a car could drive through it, but it's not for everyday use. It's for emergency access, and Caltrans and city has allowed that too. I mean, there's lots of, but that's between Caltrans and the applicant, I'm assuming.
And the issue with having breakaway chains or whatever is that whole issue of, do people know that actually, you can actually go through when there's an emergency? And so the trend now with the fire department, with the state, is they want to have full access for all services for circulation. In this case, fire department may accept it if that is where we're heading, but, you know, they want to see 2 access points.
Okay, I just have one question. You talked about secondary use for the housing units. Is there a definition of how many there can be? Does it just have to be less?
It's interesting because where you find it is actually in the definition section of the ordinance. And it talks about you can have 2 bedrooms for every 1,000 square feet of the proposed commercial use that you're developing. In the case of the hotel, the commercial element, the hotel, the square footage tied to that far exceeds the number of units that would be proposed on this site.
So it
Just
would fit
using that
within
ratio.
that definition as conceptually
Yes.
shown here. Okay. So maybe we should go to public comment before we get into any deeper discussions.
And the applicant is here as well, if you'd like to
Yeah.
hear from him. Would anybody like to make a comment on this item in person or online? I see one hand online coming up. We'll start with Sheila. Or would you rather?
Is he speaking or am I speaking?
You can take public comment and then,
Yeah, we'll do public comment first and then, yeah.
Okay. My name is Sheila Benedict. I was the archivist at the mission across from this project for almost 18 years. I have watched what has happened to the traffic over the years. Although I've only lived here less than 30 years, I started coming here in the 1960s, so we won't need to talk about traffic for that. But our traffic jam is horrible, and you can imagine what will happen if this development would go through. The other thing is, somebody mentioned Caltrans. While I was still working at the mission, the corner lot where there is no development, a developer had proposed a beautiful small 1-story building with 2 or 3 different businesses in it, and Caltrans shot it down for the Archdiocese of Los Angeles because of traffic that would happen in and out of both Mission and Ellisville. So now I notice that there is a for sale sign on it. I haven't worked there in 3 years, so I don't know what the plan is if that gets sold. However, I still have to ask, and I've asked before, if the Shumash have a say in any of this, because they used to live there. Now, they may not care, but there could be artifacts there. And I know when I brought the ground penetrating radar and the forensic canines to the mission with the grant, we had Shumash monitors for that and for architect and for when the archaeologists came. But I wonder if the Shumash have been consulted over what might be on that land. Will there be an impact on the mission and where the Vets Hall is? I can't tell you how many people may disregard everything and park in both places because the traffic is so awful. I can tell you that I have an adjective for everything that I think is wrong with what Mr. St. George is planning. It starts with A and ends with Z, and I sincerely hope that you take what the citizens of this community want for this community, and not an outsider that just is looking for it because of the money that he could make off of it. I rest my case.
Thank you, Sheila. Are there any other comments?
We have Nancy Emerson next.
Can't hear her.
You're still on mute, Nancy. There you go.
Okay.
Chair Williams and commission members, I'm Nancy Emerson representing WeWatch, a San Ynez Valley Environment and Land Use Organization. The hybrid solution being proposed for the Skid Lumberyard site interests WeWatch. We ask that you thoroughly evaluate this proposal's multiple aspects. We are pleased that the developer is no longer asking for a TOT abatement and that the reduced height of the primary hotel building along 246 better fits its location. We support serious consideration of Spanish-style architecture in this specific transition location. We're willing to consider restoration of the original TRC zoning on this site with housing included. We question the current density of the proposed development given its site size, neighborhood characteristics, and traffic issues. We question the 4-story height of interior buildings and any 3rd story on the main hotel building taller than surrounding historic buildings and village height limits. We found no information about the proposed setback from 246. Please evaluate this. Our other major concerns are parking and traffic. Given existing parking problems in this neighborhood, parking must be on site and may require reducing the number of hotel rooms and/or housing units. Given plans for an enlarged senior center and library with possible increased versatility of the Vets Hall, it's foolish to sell or lease Vets Hall parking spaces. Might underground parking be feasible? The traffic impact study will highlight the challenges of 246 and Pine. Though the site plan states the main entrance will be on Maple, it's not clear how the driveway to 246 will be used. And I know you've been discussing this issue. Our additional concerns will be addressed by the DRC, color scheme, no black or white, please. Further refined Spanish-style building design along 246 and outdoor lighting. Unmodified, this proposal would enable the developer to have his cake and eat it too, but changes are needed. The solution does not lie in returning to any earlier proposal. This is a very sensitive, visible site within the city and needs the very best planning possible by all parties. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Do we have anybody else online?
If you'd like to make a comment on this item, please raise your hand. Seeing no further comment.
Okay, any comments from the audience in person? Well, seeing none, I'll invite Mr. St. George to come up and give us his little overview on how he got here, maybe.
Chair Williams, thank you. Board, appreciate it. One of the things that I'd like to just talk about right now is that how I see Solvang in the San Ynez Valley, I see it undervalued in many ways, and I'm sure you all feel the same. The analogy I've been using for a lot of people are, if you take, and I know there was a study done quite some time ago, but if you took 200 people that all have a $20 bill in their hand that they're going to spend in Solvang that day, and I think $20 is a little over what the study even came in at, or you took 4 people on this side that have $1,000 they're going to spend a day, you're actually going to have less people in the community. And at some point, I think Solvang and San Ynez, I know Los Olivos is kind of turning in that direction. I think we should look at a different type of tourist perhaps. Not entirely, but looking for more of the type of tourist that's coming here to spend a week or 2 weeks, and has a little more appreciation maybe what for the valley has to offer. I'm seeing this type of hotel and this type of tourism actually reducing traffic for the community. These are the type of people that aren't going to come up for a day use. This is a 4-star hotel. That's typically not what they end up doing. So I do want you to understand that we have spent a lot of time trying to create that dynamic. That's why, for me, the Wellness Center is so important to this project. We're trying to actually get people up here that just, when they're leaving, once they get back to their home, are saying, we got to do that again. We got to do that again a couple of times. I feel so much more relaxed. Or maybe they just come up here and spend 2 or 3 months. That's the type of tourists we're looking for on this particular hotel. So there's not a big restaurant in here. There's a place for people to eat in the mornings. There's an area that there is a kitchen, but the idea is not to sell restaurant space here. The idea is this is trying to be pretty a self-contained type of hotel, higher end.
Okay, thank
Ask
you.
a question?
Yeah, sure.
Could you address the thing you call workforce housing, maybe, is that what you call it? The smaller studios and things. I get the condos, big, 10 of them, but the workforce housing is designed for what?
Well, the workforce housing is let's kind of start, because there's a couple of different areas where I see this really benefiting the community. I've talked to some people that do live in the community that I've known for a number of years, and some that I've just met. And their children, how this conversation started on one of these people was, she was telling me, because I was introducing my son to her, and she was saying that, yeah, I can't wait to get out of here. And I go, well, how old are you? And I think she was 22 or 23 years old. And I said, well, it's kind of funny you still live here. And she goes, well, I love living here. I just don't like living with my father anymore. And I get that. I mean, and so this is for, and she works in his restaurant. And I said, well, why don't you move out? She goes, well, there's no place to move, at least that I can afford. So the idea is that these are for people, one, the community I think could benefit from it, from our own children, but moreover too is that people maybe want to come here to work, and they don't have to commute from Santa Maria or Lompoc. If you're working in a restaurant, working in just about anywhere, one of the things that have changed a lot, and so I'm kind of looking in this room, except for this one woman sitting in front of us taking notes, we couldn't wait to get our driver's license when we were younger. And that they did a study about 1.5 years ago where they surveyed, I forget how many people it was, but the percentage is what the most impressive to me was, is they surveyed kids between the ages of 16 and 21 years old, and less than 50% of them had a driver's license. And the survey went on to ask them, well, do you plan on driving anytime soon? A lot of them figured that they would. But the striking parts was what they wanted to spend their money on. They felt that the car was a very expensive luxury, considering what they would rather spend their money. They'd rather spend their money going to restaurants or on clothes or going on trips. And so the dynamic of kids have changed. And so these are our workforce. That's why I call it workforce housing. If you can actually live in Solvang and work within a distance where you can get there on your bicycle or Uber for a pretty cheap price, this seems to be the future. And so that's why these are small units. None of them are big. The condos that's a whole different element. If you're asking about that, that's a whole completely different. But they're very, very small units. The time is really meant to be spent outdoors, and that seems to be the trend. So, did that answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead, Jess.
The next lady, Nancy Emerson, that we watched was asking about subterranean parking. Have you considered that on your project, or what was, is that included, or, I mean, that seems like it's not a bad idea if you have limited space to be able to get more cars, or maybe one of those carousels where you can shuffle cars around like they do in Europe in tight spaces.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. We actually we are going down 2 levels, and we're coming up, I believe it's 3 or 4 levels. We do have a parker. That's where a majority of the parking will be. The last thing I really want to do is create a sea of asphalt. The site is limited. There will be some of that housing that we're speaking of will be on top of that parker, in fact. So you won't be looking at this project and seeing a sea of vehicles out there. You will be seeing some as you come down the driveway, because we are going to have public availability to the wellness center. So the parker itself, the automated parker, will be, you'll have to use that with a valet. So, and that's a good question, but yeah, it's already on site.
How many cars will fit in that?
Sorry. I don't have that
Okay.
exact number, but I think it's closer to about 65 to 70 cars will be in that parker.
On the workforce housing, would this be priced accordingly with the demographic that you're expecting to live there? I mean, that's the biggest problem in Solvang and in other cities as well, that the workforce housing, if there is such a thing, starts out of the price range of the workforce.
Absolutely, and there's a couple of ways of looking at this. I like to use the term affordable by design, and these are just that. These are about 300 square feet, which is smaller than a 2-car garage. That includes a bathroom, a full-size bathroom, a kitchen, and a living space. So they are affordable. There's no doubt about it.
Say that one more time. How many square feet?
Approximately 300 square feet. They're called micro units. What they're building a lot up in San Francisco and New York are in the sub-2s. Believe it or not, some of them are like 190, 180 square feet. It's hard to imagine. But 300 square feet is not so bad. My wife and I have a place over in Italy that's about 340 square feet, and it fits us just fine. We have a pull-out bed, but I mean, and that's what this would actually, these would have Murphy beds already installed in them. We tend to furnish. That's the other thing that we know on a separate level, is that a lot of people don't like to buy furniture anymore. So if we could offer these furnished, it would be helpful. We're anticipating probably at least 15 to 20 of these for our own employees, as it is, so.
Seems almost dormitory kind of, with a little kitchenette and a bathroom and work in town, I suppose. It's not going to be designed for families and things. It's going to be designed for a single person, maybe a couple, but certainly single. Is that where I'm understanding?
It's single couple. It's some of them. When I said approximately 300 square feet, some will be a little bigger, some maybe a little smaller, until we get down into the weeds. But yes, absolutely.
And where would the parking be for these people, or?
Well, this would be in the auto parker as well.
Oh, so they have valet parking in the auto parker for the workforce housing?
Well, the way at least it is in Santa Barbara, I'm not sure if you've got it. In Santa Barbara, if you live on site, you can use the parker because you've been trained to use the parker. But if you were just somebody coming to spend the weekend, by the time I think you know, you end up showing somebody how to use it, you could have just valet parked it. So they are for residences to use. They're actually quite easy. I mean, you have an app on the phone, believe it or not, and this would be actually set up for the guests themselves. And you just press the app, and depending how many people are in front of you, it will bring your car down to you. It's pretty remarkable. They're made in Germany.
So, just going by your conceptual first sheet here, it said that you're going to provide 53 parking spaces. And there, you said there were about 65 in the Parker, so that, you know, that leaves 30-some
Yeah,
for your hotel.
yeah, I wasn't exactly sure how many, I'll see if I can see if we have the Parker in here.
Yeah, but it
Yeah,
also
the
says that's all
details
in
for the
hotel.
actual parking structure were not provided in these plans, but it does note valet parking structure as part of the illustration. We just don't have the details of what is being proposed in the undergrounding portion of this.
Where I was going was how he arrived at these numbers for parking.
Oh, yes, what we had done is we took the size of the Parker, and we went down 2 floors, because we're not actually sure where the water table is, but we certainly know that we can go down 2 floors. I mean, you can actually expand this Parker somewhat. One of the problems is every time you end up expanding it, it just takes more and more time to get the, exactly.
Okay, the numbers just didn't add up to me, and I understand it's a concept right now, and then if you move ahead, those would be fleshed out, but seems like there's a big differential there.
I probably shouldn't have said 65 to 70, that was just my guess.
Sorry.
Yeah,
And we also need to go through analyzing the actual project as to what this square footage of the hotel is versus the residential. And so we'll work with Ed's team to come up with the right numbers.
Are there any other
I have a
questions for
question.
Ed?
Yes. What are you doing with the old house?
Do you want it?
Sure, if you move it on the lot for me, I will. I'll take it. Because on the new plan, it's gone, and that's where the driveway is.
Yes. We have talked to Dunn School. They actually reached out to me. They said that they may be interested in it.
Most of the buildings out at Dunn are old houses from the city of Salt Lake.
That's what the gentleman was telling me.
Yeah.
It is a nice house. We're currently living there. It's a little noisy, but I love the ambulance across the street. Just as you're kind of settling in from the last run, it just hits back up again. But it is a neat house. There's no doubt about it. We've done some work to it, some interior work, and so it's a very nice little home, without a doubt. So
Is it actually movable?
I looked at it, and I think if we cut it in 3 pieces, it looks like it would be movable. It appears to me that it's had 2 additions to it. So
Okay. Any other questions, Justin? Thank you, Ed.
well, thank you. I appreciate
So
it.
we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. Any questions, observations? Anybody?
Who wants to start? I'll start, you start?
You start.
You start. Regarding the house, it's an interesting side note, is that I looked at the previous owners wanted to get rid of the house when they were doing their development. I actually looked at it to move it onto the Mission property on the corner, which is for rent, to make it into like a little coffee house or something. And so I actually got bids to move it, because I thought it was easy, down the street and go over and do it. This was about 4 years ago when I was looking at the bank building. So I know it can be moved. I mean, I looked into it that way, and there are some additions to it. I think it's a cute house, somebody wants it. I mean, Firestone moved the corner, remember out there, yeah. I mean, that was a huge
Big
move,
house.
big house, out of Santa Maria all the way down. So, I mean, they do move them, they do keep them, they do it, and you put in historical easement around it. And I'm not as concerned, I don't think it needs to stay on that spot. I think there's other great spots for it, either in town or it could be somewhere in the valley, and still requires one condition that you have a plaque that says where it got moved to, and a little historic. I thought reading that historical report on it was very interesting, you know, that how far back it went and things like that. So that's kind of neat. So I'm not as concerned as that, as long as it's a condition. And I got to the back page and said, what's the bottom line here? They said, well, knock down everything else on the site, but the house needs to be moved or taken care of, somehow mitigated. I'm not concerned about the Shumash and the historical, because that will be one of the conditions. We've all been there, we've all done developments, we all know that they're going to be involved, and you're going to have Site 1, Site 2 archaeological study, and they're going to come in. If you find stuff, well, I'm telling you what, it's a serious matter, and you're going to have to take care of it. Happens all the time in Santa Barbara. Height, we had this big discussion back, I don't know if any of you guys were on Planning Commission at the time, that the senior housing went in off of Maple. And the problem with that, and I real issue with it, is that here's Maple Street. It went up like 8 feet here. We measured from there to here. We didn't measure from the top down to Maple Street. So you just build up and then you go higher and higher and higher. Point is, I guarantee that is way out of sync if you went to the curb to the top of that building. But at the time, we just said you go down to where the footing is and come out 3 feet. And then if you go 4 feet and you drop another 10 feet, you can just step it down 60 feet. So the height doesn't bother me. I like that the height on Mission is lower than what it was previous. I think the 3 stories off of Maple is fine, because the development above it is way the heck up. It's another 8 or 10 feet, and then it goes from there on up. I don't have an issue with that. The parking was answered. If that's true, and we can do in lieu, and we can do that, that's allowed. We've done it before. We do it now. It's not a problem. I own buildings in town that have 0 parking. Morton's Bakery, Greenhouse, or Peasant's Feast as examples, because we all bought in, we paid in lieu, and you're in the district, and that was done. You wouldn't have Rasmussen's there, or Ingeborg's, or a lot of places if you had to have parking on site. So obviously we allow the in lieu, and that doesn't have a real issue for me either. The access, Mr. St. George is going to have to deal with Caltrans on that, and city and fire and access and emergency, and does it work? Is it a breakaway chain? Is it off Mission? Is it not? Is it coming all off of Maple? Obviously, those are specifics that the staff will deal with that we don't even need to deal with, other than I doubt, and I agree with Sheila from the Mission, because when I was looking at the Mission corner lot, there was no way Caltrans was going to let me come off of 246. However, that's right at the light. This is close to Pine. I don't know what the outcome will be and how Caltrans feels about it. Regarding traffic in general, and I've used this example many times, we are simply an hourglass turned on its side with Solvang right in the middle. And it's absolutely unfair that Buellton can grow and St. Inez can grow, and we get the hourglass compression, and everybody criticizes us, that it's our problem to solve. Therefore, their traffic, our traffic, it's somebody going to the high school lives in Buellton, it's going to fast food or Albertsons in Buellton, it's soccer practice in St. Inez when you live in Buellton. We have no bypass on Baseline, we have no bypass along the river, we have no bypass anywhere. I don't have an answer for it. I don't think it's fair, though, that type of traffic that we have no control that goes on there comes into Solvang, and we can't grow. We can't do anything because our traffic's so bad here. So with all due respect, I agree traffic is tough. I'm also a believer that if you build it, they will come. If we do a bypass or 4-lane to 246, we'll just have more development, and in 5 years we'll be at the same point that we're at. We'll have to 3-lane it and do another bypass. So again, don't have an answer, but I don't think the answer is, oh my gosh, let's stifle all growth in Solvang, because we have no control over St. Inez and Buellton, and they can continue to grow, and it all comes right through the hourglass. And it's not just casino traffic, it's housing traffic, it's high school traffic, it's obviously what's going on in Buellton, commuter traffic, from Buellton to Santa Barbara, from Lompoc to Santa Barbara. So I don't want to foist all that on one developer or one project. I think the Spanish is great. That was what we wanted. We didn't want Danish. We wanted that transition. It's across from the Mission. I think that's super. And then my final comment is I would love to see a hotel. Now, is this too many units? I don't know. Is there too many apartments? I don't know. I mean, the gentleman's, Mr. St. George, is going to figure out financially. The city is going to say, does it work parking-wise? Does it work? Traffic studies are going to come out. Are there shoe-mash bones? I don't know. That's all going to get figured out. Where's the water level? How deep can he go? Can he do it or not? I don't know. But I love the concept of a hotel with a combination of housing units, not only for maybe perhaps his employees, but for other employees in town. And if there's some high-end condos with great views, super. And if there's some low-end small, I think that's great too. I've got 4 children, and I know what it takes to rent and where they live in San Diego or Santa Barbara, and little starters are kind of a cool thing. I hope it doesn't go to 3 families going in there, but I'll tell you what, if he's got a 4-diamond hotel, he's not going to have a husband, a wife, and 3 kids living in a 300 square foot thing, because his hotel's going to go to heck in a handbasket, and he's not going to want that. So that is, to me, it's a check and balance. And so it's kind of a cool dormitory kind of concept starter home idea, which all my kids in San Diego who are in the Navy, all their friends are living in these little starters and going, this is great, and then we move up, and anyway, I think it's a great concept. Details are obviously the issue, and you folks are smarter at it than we are, but from a general concept, I think we're on a great track.
Justin, you had some questions, comments?
Yeah, I mean, I think this project, I mean, that lot has been vacant for a very long time now. When did the lumberyard close? Do you remember? 15 years, John?
Maybe not that long, but close.
I just see this
At
as
least 10.
a benefit to the community, more tax revenue for this, for the community. There's going to be housing. I like Aaron just said. I mean, you think you just consolidated all my thoughts, and I agree with what you said for the most part. So I don't really have a problem. And then compared to Mr. St. George's prior ambitions on this project, I think this kind of is more of a meeting in the middle. It's on his only property, and it's condensed. It's not. I think it meets a lot of people.
It's much better to look
Yeah,
at.
and I think it's preferable to the 4-story apartment units. So I think this is a win-win for everybody. It matches the aesthetic of the area across from the Mission. So.
And right next door to it too,
Yeah.
the vet zone.
So yeah, exactly. So I think it works.
Joni, do you have?
Well, I came here knowing I wasn't gonna like it. My only concern, to be honest with you, is the old house. I just wanna make sure that it finds a place to be, because it has a lot of history. It belonged to a cool family that did a lot for this community. I kinda like the hotel. I'm so glad you're not just right up against the sidewalk with it. You're back, I don't know what your setback is, but it looks decent. I'm fascinated with your parking. I've used those before, and I find them a little scary personally, but I guess you get used to them. I like building into the hillside there across from the senior housing. I think that's a great idea. Maybe you can put a lot of garage space underneath some of those buildings to keep all your parking on site, if you can. Find the water first. I don't think you're gonna find any water. I think that was the one thing that our forefathers didn't do a very good job with. They put us on this little mesa here and there's no water. People tried to have wells for their houses and they didn't have them. So maybe you'll be lucky and not find water and be able to go down below and put some parking in underneath some of your buildings. Just a thought. Just a thought. But I wish you good luck. I think the hotel is going to be a nice addition. I'm kind of hanging back on the rest of it right now, but good luck.
I'd like to thank Mr. St. George. It's obvious he's listened to comments from this commission and city council and surveys the city's done, and I think he's really listened and stepped up and designed a building for the frontage there that I think will be acceptable to the community. I like it. The buildings in back, we'll see what happens there. But so I like the concept, and I'd like to see him move ahead. But I have a couple of questions. The first is in the write-up that we got with the agenda. It talked about a August 6th date for a decision on the original low-income housing. What is happening with that?
The project is going through environmental review right now, and I'll just defer to that. We're still working on it.
So, as I understand it, from state law, a decision has to be made by August 6th. What are the options for decisions that could be made on August 6th?
No, the project was complete on March 2nd, and on the 6-month review of a negative declaration would be in September. For an EIR, it's 1 year.
Okay, so what is the August 6th date that was in the write-up?
What page are you referring to, do you know?
I don't remember what page it was on.
You know, and I'm not saying this is true, Jack, but was it the old dates that we saw on the old project? I saw one that
Yeah,
was
but
in
it is,
2020.
that's the old project, as far as I know, that still exists.
I got you.
And unless Mr. St. George has withdrawn his proposal.
So I think in one spot, I see an August 6th date in the old staff report. That's when some additional information was filed, but that was in 2020.
That's what I thought.
And, yeah.
I thought it had to do with the statute of limitations
Yeah,
of
but
how
that's
many meetings
2020.
they had
Yeah.
before it would be authorized, isn't that
Yeah.
correct?
No, it's,
6 meetings.
we're still within
5
the
meetings.
permit
5.
processing timeframe.
Yeah, here it is, page 18.
Page 18.
Says once full application's been submitted, environmental review process can be initiated. The law specifies reduced timelines for scheduling hearings and also limits the number to only 5. And in the sentence previous to that, it says, in this case, it's August 6, 2020. So that doesn't apply anymore, it's now September that a decision has
Well,
to be made
again,
on
it's,
that?
this is 2020, we're in 2021.
21, yeah, I understand.
Right.
But that project is the project of record.
Correct.
Right now. All these others are concepts and proposals, but nothing has been formally submitted as far as I know.
Correct. And we're
So
still
that
processing the
project
application.
still exists.
Correct.
So we have 2 projects that are going along.
We have one project
One project
and a concept.
and a concept.
And-
So if this concept is to proceed, does that one have to be withdrawn?
We would ask either for a time extension to allow us to direct our energy to the hotel project, or ask for a withdrawal. And the applicant,
Who grants that extension?
we would ask the applicant for a time extension. And
Even though it's the state law that says it's gotta be by a certain date?
yes, you can have agreed upon time extensions for CEQA. The Environmental Quality Act can allow us for additional time. It's not uncommon to have extensions of time for the environmental review analysis. But in this case, he can toll the timeline, basically apply for a time extension or grant a time extension until we move forward with the hotel project to see how we can move through that process. And if for whatever reason that doesn't happen, we can reinstitute the project that he has on file.
And the hotel project, as conceptually presented, is still gonna require rezoning.
Correct.
How does that happen? And, you know, we've had lots of discussions about this. And at the city council meeting, when they discussed this is something staff was gonna look into. I don't know how far you've gotten on that. But I have a question for Chelsea. Since there is housing involved here, is there some mitigation that can go on with respect to SB 330? Can it be zoned such that the hotel and the housing can coexist and still have the housing count? That wasn't clear in the write-up.
Yes, so, this would implicate the no net loss law, which basically means that requires that the city has to maintain at all times enough sites adequate to meet its regional housing need allocation. And so this site, these two properties have housing allocated to them. But under this proposal, they would be building the right number of housing to meet that allocation. So changing the zoning to the TRC zoning from D20 residential, as long as those units are still getting built and the city can document that the allocation is met, that's okay.
Oh, okay, that was, because the thing we've always run into before is we have to find alternate locations for those 43 units or whatever the number was.
Right, and that came up when it was just a hotel proposed,
Right.
because then where are those 43 units or, you know, whatever the allocation was, where were those gonna go? But if the city can demonstrate that those allocated units are developed, then the rezone doesn't change the property being zoned to TRC would still be able to meet that allocation that it has under the current RENA that's applied, yeah.
Okay, well, that's great, that's kind of what I wanted to hear, but wasn't hopeful I'd hear that.
I mean,
So-
during the project review, staff will have to make sure that we're counting correctly and that, you know,
Yeah.
the city is meeting its requirements. This is preliminary, so I don't wanna promise that it's all perfect, because we have to evaluate the
Right.
project at that point, but.
And then a general question, which we chat about, but and maybe we still don't know the answer. When we make these secondary residential units, basically triplexing every piece of property in the city, certainly duplexing them, where you can have allowed a second residential, whether it's contained inside or separate. Do we know if those numbers are gonna start counting toward our goals?
Yes, and the annual report that we've provided to the Planning Commission over the last couple of years did include ADUs, accessory dwelling units, as well as junior ADUs. Were counted in meeting our obligation for the different income levels, because as Mr. St. Joyce noted, a lot of these units aren't committed to the affordable housing program, but they're affordable by design. When you're building a 500 square foot unit, we can classify those in a particular income level. And you know, if they're 300 square feet, if they're 700 square feet, we bump them up to the next income level, and you can go all the way up to 1,200 square feet for a accessory dwelling unit. And so we've been able to disperse some of the ADUs that we've permitted already into these different income categories.
So do you have any control over what is charged for those units?
No, we don't require them to be deed restricted or income restricted. And actually, you can't even do that with state law for accessory dwelling units.
I was gonna say, because it's not low-income accessory dwelling units, it's accessory
Yes.
dwelling units.
ADUs.
Yeah, ADUs.
Or a junior?
You know, I remember when we rezoned the property, I was on planning commission, I don't know if you guys, I can't remember, it's been too many years. When we took the Copenhagen property, took the Skip property, we took Margaret Si's property down on Alma Pintada and behind Denmark Square, we rezoned all that to get these units. And it's a change in the general plan. It was like lickety split. It was not a tough thing to do. We didn't go through a 4-year process of rezoning from TRC to go to, or commercial, general commercial, to go to multifamily DR20. It kind of just happened very easily. So sometimes we talk about the process being a major, oh my God, a whole rezone to the general plan and all this for one piece of property. Maybe I'm wrong, but it sure seemed like we went the other way fairly easily. And city attorney telling us that this is even better because if the 43 or 40 or 30, whatever that number is, stays as residential, kind of helps our cause.
And isn't mixed use the trend anyway, trying to get people to live and stay in the same place? I mean, I don't see why people would be
Absolutely.
opposed to that.
Absolutely.
But the issue with this project is that because we have the no net loss provision, we're going to have to process a development plan along with it. We can't just go to TRC and not have any commitments in that process because they could do a full hotel with it. So we need to be very careful when we go down this route because we have some guiding principles and laws that we need to follow.
And if we move ahead, and if it looks like we're gonna move ahead, hopefully, with this project, the city will require traffic studies and, all that sort of thing.
When the current housing project was submitted, they have done the archaeological survey, and they have done a traffic study for the housing. So that traffic study would have to be amended, particularly because they're now proposing access on Mission Drive where they were not before. So there will be some refresh of some of the information that they've already provided. And, we also need to look at water use and sewer use and all of the other things that are required for a development
Especially
project.
water.
Yeah, and so, those are the things that we'll be looking at, assuming Mr. St. George will move forward with this project.
And one thing I'd like to request is when this development plan is presented, I'd like to see some demographic information that would support Mr. St. George's plan for basically high-end people coming, that's great to say, but how do we make that happen, and what evidence is there that it will happen?
You're probably, just a comment, probably referring to more of a market study as far as, how his plans are, is what the attraction is.
Right.
So I think that's a good comment, and we'll work with him on that.
If I remember, Jack, also when they built the new CVS next to New Frontier Market, that was gonna be a 24-hour CVS, and that quickly became, regular. It closed at 8 p.m. because I don't think there's no need for a 24-hour. I mean, I think that's just an economic
Actually,
question.
we passed a regulation that said they can't be open later than 10.
The other comment on that, Jack, is let's say that Mr. St. George comes in with a 4-diamond hotel and he gives us all the markets that he wants and he sells it in 2 years and they make it into a 1-diamond. Well, we can't control that market. There's no way. All plans are, laid best. I want to open up a high-end restaurant. I ended up turning it into a burger place, and you know what I mean. It is what it is. We've got to be happy with that it's a hotel and that it's going to be X amount of rooms and that we've got some workforce and we've got some condos, and whether it's this gentleman doing it or he sells it to somebody else. And just in a general comment, nothing at anybody here is, and you've heard it all, he's not from here, he's an outsider, he's gonna gouge, he's gonna do this. If we go back and we look at the history, and I'm not being a cheerleader for him or his project at all, I'm just saying I've been involved with this for the last 3 years when the previous city council came up with this idea to knock down, the whole center. We were gonna take Memorial Hall and knock it down, and this gentleman said, okay, if you guys are on city council, you're the mayor and the city attorney, you guys said we can do this, golly, I'll invest in that. Shoot, I'd invest in that. What are we gonna do? And he got painted. I don't know if he's a good guy or not a good guy. I don't care. It doesn't matter. He's got a good project. It has nothing personal here, and it has nothing to do with what he's done in the back and what he's done. Great projects in Santa Barbara, lousy projects in Las Vegas or super, it doesn't matter. We're looking at this project for our community at this time, objectively, nothing subjectively, because he's not Danish heritage, or he's Italian heritage, or he's black, or he's white, or he's gay, or he's a woman, or we don't look at that stuff. Now maybe that's the U.S. attorney and me coming out, but we are objective, and everyone's equal under the law, and we just treat them that way, and we don't say, golly, if I wish it was a Danish family doing this, we would all bend over backward. That has no place in what we do. And I say it over and over and over and over and over again, and I'm an old family born in the 60s here, so I've been here for a long time. It's unfair if we treat people who are outsiders that, oh my gosh, something's gonna be terrible and we don't trust them. No place in this. And again, I'm not saying we're saying it, but I hear it, and I'm saying this to the public out there, I hear it all the time, because we got our ears to the grindstone, and it's unfair. So we look at the project on its merits, and we go forward with it, or we don't go forward with it. End of story. My last comment, sorry.
Okay, just one more quick question on the material that was here when we arrived tonight. Is there, obviously I haven't had a chance to read it, is there anything in there that we should be bringing up as part of this discussion?
There were 2 public letters provided. One of them was from Nancy Emerson, pretty much stated for the record what her concerns were. The second letter was provided in back of the historical study, and that was from Lansing Duncan. And so he did have some good comments in regards to the project. And so we'll take that into consideration when we're working with Mr.
So these will both become part of the record, even
Yes.
though we didn't formally discuss them here.
They are part of the record already. Those are posted online, so they're available to the public.
Okay. So, if we have no other comments, let's move on. Where's my agenda?
Do you want to open it up for public comment, just since there was a lot of discussion
Again?
after public comment? I don't
Sure,
think we'll
we can
have
do that.
anyone, but
Would anybody else like to make public comment on this item at this time? Please raise your hand. Seeing none. Thank you.
Okay. So, moving on, I think we've all commented pretty much. Anybody have any further comments on this or any other topic? No?
I just have a question. What did the city council decide about the signage? Have they given direction to get rid of some of the signs that are not legal?
If we are moving on to maybe staff comments or commissioners' comments.
Whatever.
The last direction that we had from City Council was that we would start enforcing the sign ordinances of August 1st for signs.
Well, it's August 2nd.
It is August 2nd, and businesses have been notified
Okay.
with letters, so we'll be enforcing
And we
sign
also have
ordinance.
an ordinance regarding, I don't know if it's an ordinance, but in the BAR, let's not call that anymore,
DRC.
right, of papers that are put in windows, taped to windows for sale signs, little announcements. Those aren't allowed either.
No, so all of that will begin enforcement efforts. So
Okay,
that
I'm
was
not just
just
talking about signage on the streets, I'm talking about within the store.
Correct.
Not within, but on the outside.
It's not an item on the agenda. I'm seeing the city attorney looking at me, but it is a council
just a-
direction that we already have received. So
Okay.
yes, all of that enforcement efforts will be going on.
Thank you.
Okay. So one other thing, we tabled the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, now that Justin's here, and we have a quorum that could approve them. Did you read the minutes, or?
Yes, I did.
Would you like to make a motion to approve them?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from June 7th, 2021.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes
3,
3.
4, 1 abstain. Do we have any further staff comments on
I
any topic?
just have one comment just to remind you that We are moving forward with the general plan update. We have the GPAC that's been working on vision and guiding principles. That draft went to the DRC committee, who held a special meeting for it. They made some general comments. It will be going back to GPAC this week for final recommendations. And at that point, the document, which is quite important because it will frame the way that we develop the general plan update and all of the policies and the vision forward for the next 20 years. That document will be coming to you as the Planning Commission and the City Council at the same time. We'll hold a joint session on August 23rd, and this will be a topic of discussion. The document will be posted online on plansolving.com as soon as we have the final draft from GPAC this week, so there will be some additional time for public to make comment on it. And of course, we invite everybody on August 23rd to join the City Council and Planning Commission.
I have a question about that. Like, some of us sit on the GPAC and we're also on the commission. What's our role when this is presented?
Right, so as part of the GPAC, you're an advisory body essentially to City Council ultimately. It's not a Brown Act committee, so we have no more than 2 people from any Brown Act body. So there's 2 of you commissioners on the GPAC. Your role when we have the joint session of the Planning Commission and the City Council will be as Planning Commissioners, and you will be basically once again advising in a way to the City Council, and then the vision approving or otherwise giving us comments and further direction on that document.
In that capacity as planning commissioners, it does fall within the Brown Act.
Correct,
requirements.
absolutely.
Okay, anything else? Okay, seeing no more comments, thank you very much. We are adjourned.
Thank you.